So today we are going to be telling the story, a very tragic story. I actually watched this movie over the weekend. It's called An American Crime on Netflix if you want to check it out. Um Now, what was interesting about this movie is that it told the story pretty well, but we were able to spot a few big differences when we actually researched the case. And this is one of the most horrifying crimes ever committed against a child in history. A 16-year-old girl was tortured for months, not in secret, not in the dark, but in plain view of neighbors, children, and adults who said nothing.
Holy.
If you haven't guessed it already, this is the tragic and extremely disturbing story of Sylvia Likens.
All right, well, look, guys. I'm going to get into Sylvia and Likens a little bit. Sylvia Marie Likens was born on January 3rd, 1949, in Lebanon, Indiana. She was the third of five children to carnival workers Lester and Betty Likens. Life for Sylvia wasn't easy. Her parents' work meant they were consistently on the move, and financially, instability was common. But Sylvia was described by friends and family as quiet, kind, and always smiling. She loved the music and had a gentle spirit. In the summer of 1965, her parents decided to leave Sylvia and her younger sister Jenny with a woman they thought they could trust, Gertrude, for $20 a week. Wait, $20 a week for a babysitter?
Well, let's remember Sylvia was born in 1949,
Sheesh.
and this case happened in 1965.
Right.
But we weren't going to do it before, but especially after watching this movie, we're not leaving our child with anyone except like our family. No friends, no.
That's a fact. And by the way, like you might see some baby stuff in the back. Angel is expecting. So don't mind that. We thought this would be a cool way to bond and do something cool together and start this YouTube channel doing true crime. She's the one that's into true crime. I mean, it's obvious. But yeah.
Alrighty. So now let's talk a little bit about Gertrude Benazowski. She was a 37-year-old single mother of seven children.
Holy.
Now, before I get more into Gertrude, people do blame the fact that she had seven kids on the abuse that is later to come. And I come from a big family. I don't think being surrounded by so many kids makes you crazy, but those weren't my kids, so I don't know.
She
And
she
we're not
probably
having seven.
she probably had a husband that was stressing her out. That's probably really what it was. She was probably taking it out on them kids, maybe.
Well, so on the surface, she seemed like she was struggling, but a decent woman nonetheless. But behind closed doors, Gertrude was a different person. She was sick and abusive and emotionally unstable. So there was a week where the $20 payment from the Likens parents arrived late. And that caused Gertrude to snap. And she took it out on Sylvia. What began as mild discipline quickly escalated into relentless abuse. Now, I just want to throw this bit in. When you watch the movie, um, it does, in the movie, Sylvia decides to take the beating for her and her sister. When I was looking more into the case, some sources say that both Sylvia and her sister got a beating for that payment being late, and some say Sylvia did take the beating for her sister. Either way, the $20 payment started the abuse.
I feel like back in those 40s, 50s, and 60s era, I feel like that generation was very gullible because it was very common to just go do like leave your kids with people like that,
Mhm.
honestly. But sheesh, man, that's crazy. That is crazy. Well, we're gonna get into how some of the abuse may have escalated and got ramped up, well, Gertrude began to beat Sylvia. Then she accused her of being promiscuous. She then would spread lies that Sylvia was pregnant and told the neighbors, kids, they could join in the discipline, and they did. They would take turns sometimes, burning her with cigarettes. Man, that's crazy, man. Jesus Christ. Sylvia was burned with cigarettes for crying out loud. That is crazy. How old was this girl?
She was only 16.
16? Well, she was also forced to eat her own vomit. She was denied food and water. She was trapped in a basement like she was some sort of dog. Well, I mean, in America, dogs get treated better than humans, but that's another conversation for another day. She would be left tied up in the basement. She was, carved, beaten, humiliated, tortured almost on a daily. Gertrude's children joined in, especially the 17-year-old Paula, who broke Sylvia's teeth with a brutal punch. Even neighbors and school friends were invited in to practice the abuse. And definitely in them days, the whole town or a lot of friends would get on in whatever is going on. That's just that type of era. Like if one person doing something, as much people as you're going to invite to join in on it, which is crazy. You know, One child, Richard Hobbs was the one who heated a needle and carves the word, I'm a prostitute and proud of it, into Sylvia's stomach. Let that sink in, man. These is
Yeah.
kids torturing kids, man. Human nature could be very demonic. That's wild.
I definitely feel like you gotta have something in you to be able to do that to another person and not and like find joy in it and not be like
Yeah,
disgusted
they on
by
some
it.
50 Shades of Grey or something. I don't know. Like that's wicked.
Yeah. So so this is what actually happened in the movie. Um it isn't the mother, it isn't Gertrude that invites the neighborhood kids to join in. She tells her kids to like go have fun torturing Sylvia, and they invite their friends and people they know to come in and do the abuse. Also in the movie, Paula, her daughter, did not take part in the abuse when she was in the basement. She tried to bring her like food and water. I definitely think the movie was trying to paint Paula in a better light than she actually was. So if you watch the movie, do not be fooled by that. She did not try to help her at
Now,
all.
now, do you have any idea why a writer may want to do that?
I think it was just for the essence of the movie. Like they exaggerated some things with Paula. They held back some things. Like in the movie, definitely she was not forced to eat her own vomit, and
Right. Yeah, because
um
I'm like, I didn't remember that in the movie.
yeah, there was a lot of like abuse that she endured that they didn't show in the movie because they felt like it was too graphic. But I felt like they had to have like a heroine of some effect, like someone trying to help out um Sylvia, and they wanted to paint Paula in a better light since she kind of started all of this because Paula was pregnant and Gertrude was trying to offset the offset her daughter looking fast, and it was like shameful back in that time
Yeah,
for
that yo, you.
yeah.
This is YouTube, so we're not even gonna have that conversation.
Yeah. But and another big thing that they did in the movie that was different from what actually happened is Richard Hobbs was the one that carved I'm a prostitute and proud into Sylvia's abdomen. And in the movie, it's Gertrude that does it.
Wow.
So that's another big difference.
Holy.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and get into the cries unheard from Sylvia. So during this time of abuse, Sylvia tried to write letters to her parents. She cried for help to the kids and even her sister. She begged Gertrude to let her go, but unfortunately, no one came to her rescue. Jenny, her younger sister, was also abused, but she was too terrified to fight back or try to escape. A few neighbors reported hearing screams, but Gertrude always had a lie ready and no one pushed further. Sylvia's body became frail, which you can imagine through all that abuse. And her mind started to slip. She was no longer the smiling girl she used to be, just a shell of her former self. And another good thing to note, if you watch the movie, just watch it with a grain of salt, is all I'm saying. In the movie, the neighbors did hear Sylvia screaming, but no one reported it. They all said, let's mind our own business. And in fact, neighbors did report it. They didn't go into detail, they just reported hearing screams. And, the cops would go and check it out, but Gertrude was able to talk her way out of it every single time.
Wait, now in the movie, didn't they take turns raping her?
Well, no, they didn't show that in the movie, but there are some reports that the neighborhood boys took turns sexually assaulting her.
Sheesh, I wonder if there's two different movies. Like if there's an older version, because I could have sworn they had that in there, but maybe I'm bugging. But yeah, man, this story is insane, man.
It's sick.
And if y'all heard of this story, or y'all if you want to hear more stories like this, just comment down below and subscribe. But we're gonna get into the murder. Okay, so on October 26, 1965, after 3 months of nonstop torture, Sylvia Likens died and collapsed on the basement floor from a brain hemorrhage, shock, and malnutrition. She weighed just 84 pounds. Gertrude tried to cover it up, forcing a 14-year-old boy to, call the police with a rehearsed story or something like that, some BS kind of story. But Sylvia's body revealed the truth. All you had to do was take a look at her body and you already knew what happened off rip. When police arrived, they were horrified. The bruises, the burns, the carvings, it was clear this was no accident. Gertrude and everyone involved were arrested on the spot. They didn't waste no time. Let's get these criminals under the jail. So, man, this story is crazy. This is
Yeah,
wild. And
very.
she was how old again?
She was only 16 when this happened, and it was 3 months of nonstop torture, which is really, really sick to me because, as he said, I do watch a lot of true crime, and there's people who've been tortured, like grown adults, children, people of all ages who've been tortured for years, and they don't die. So that kind of tells you the extent of the abuse that she was going through. And it was Gertrude that stomped on her head and caused that final caused her to die. Um, but that is insane.
That's sick, man. You can feel it in your spine, like, oh
I
gosh.
hope if you're watching this and you have kids or you're having kids like we are, you plan not to leave your kids with anyone after listening
That's
to
not
this.
even, you can't even trust babysitters, and I've been seeing for years and years and years since social media existed. Some daycare or babysitter
Yeah.
center always beating up kids, abusing the kids. No, that kid
Yeah.
have autism. They treating them even worse.
Yeah, my mom sent me to a daycare for 2 days because on the second day a kid bit me on the forehead and I had like a little chunk of my forehead missing.
Yeah, I'd have been in jail. I'm not even putting myself in situations where you know I'm just not. Hey, look,
Yeah.
man.
Well, as he said, everyone was arrested on spot. So, of course, the next thing to come is the trial. And this trial was a trial that shocked the nations. The courtrooms were packed. It was on every single newspaper that you could imagine being printed. This was the headlining story. So, Gertrude Benisowski was charged with first degree murder, and so were her daughters Paula. No, so was her daughter Paula. So was Richard Hobbs, Coy Hubbard, and the rest of the children that were on the scene or named as being part of the abuse. The details of the torture came out in full, and the jury couldn't even hold back their tears. Reporters cried, and even hardened officers admitted they had never heard of anything so brutal. Now, you've probably watched a lot of true crime if you're on our channel and have heard of very gruesome stories, but please remember this took place in 1965, and this was the most gruesome story that they had heard at the time. And it is still one of the most gruesome stories to this day. Like if you could even imagine the extent of the abuse. But anyways, in 1966, Gertrude was sentenced to life in prison, and Paula received 20 years but served just a few. and the rest got shockingly light sentences. So they gave the brunt of the discipline and the punishment to the ringleaders, Gertrude and Paula.
Sheesh.
Hmm.
Basically them kids got a slap on the wrist, which is kind of like they do. America's like that. If you're a
Still,
kid and you want to unalive somebody, you still can get a very light sentence. That's why a lot of people send kids to do crimes, or when kids do crimes, oh, they've been doing crimes up until they're 18. Yeah, then you go to the big house, and then it's like, all right, I'm doing serious time now. I don't know why it's like that though. I think for a serious crime, murder and stuff like that, you gone, like
yeah,
But
yeah. And so, in a deeply controversial move, Gertrude was paroled in 1985, just after 20 years, and she changed her name. Um, Another thing that was interesting was that I recently found out that in 2013, her daughter was working at a elementary school, and someone was able to link her to this case, and the school staff, the school board, the principal, etc. They looked up the details of the case, the pictures, the case files, and they compared it to her identification, and she was actually let go from her job, which I was actually really happy to hear.
yeah, like Jesus Christ, I'd have been more happy here if she did more time in jail. But
I'm glad that it still followed her and ruined her life later.
no, that's for sure. Something like that, man. And one thing people gonna do is they're gonna investigate these days. They're gonna get on the net. They're gonna figure out who you are. That's what my name was. My Facebook ain't my name because coworkers ain't got no lives. But that's another topic for another day. So let's get into the impact this has had on just American history when it comes to crimes and gruesome things like this. Sylvia Likens' story is more than a crime. It's a haunting reminder of what happens when communities turn a blind eye, when people choose silence over actions. Her grave reads, "Our darling daughter." And thanks to advocates, her story is now taught in some psychological or psychology and criminal justice courses as a case study in groups, cruelty, and unchecked abuse. Jenny Likens went on to testify at every parole hearing, making sure Sylvia was never forgotten. In case, excuse me, this case inspired films like An American Crime and The Girl Next Door. But no movie can truly capture the horror Sylvia lived through. Let her story be a warning. If you ever suspect abuse, don't stay silent. Do something.
No, seriously, because that would stay on my conscience. Like, if we were to hear screams and stuff like that, especially if like a child, and then suddenly a child that you're used to seeing every day, you don't see anymore, and then you find out like what would happen, that would definitely stay on my conscience that I didn't like at least try to get someone to do something. Like, if I'm not going to intervene, because I'm not going to walk in anyone's house and do stuff like that, but if I don't at least like try to call the cops or do something more to intervene, I would definitely, I feel like that would sit with me for
Word, I'm moving.
forever.
I'm moving.
Yeah.
I'm moving. But so, guys, welcome to the channel. We hope you like this video. And if you want to see more videos from us on this channel and hear true crime and all things of that nature, and if you have stories that you would like to leave in the comments for us to do some on, feel free. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Please. And we told Sylvia's story pretty quickly, just going over the most important and impactful details of her case. But if you would like a longer, more in depth version of true crime stories, let us know that as well.